let's talk about freedom and the development of the child. Now, as parents of young children, this is an interesting conversation because we're not really thinking a lot about freedom. For adults, our reference point for freedom is how we were raised. And in my home, freedom was something that was earned, it was something that was given. The freedom that I'll be talking about today, this is different. All of us are born with freedom. This is universal. And the freedom I'm talking about is that to develop in the way that nature intended. Human beings are born with very powerful gifts that are supporting and driving development. In the first 3 years of life, we have the absorbent mind and the sensitive periods that are working unconsciously for the child. Their whole function is to absorb vast amounts of information. In fact, as much information as they possibly can, because this is going to be used as the raw materials for the child to self-construct. All of this information is laying the foundations for learning for the rest of this individual's life. The child's work, like I said, is to self-construct. But sometimes adults and the environment create barriers. They get in the way of a child being able to do this to their fullest potential. So we're going to step away from looking at freedom as something that's given, and then switch to freedom as being a human right. As parents, we do our very best to provide an exceptional environment for our children to grow because we know how important that is. But there are times when our love and our drive to keep this child safe gets in the way of some very basic freedoms that are necessary. So in this video series, I'm going to talk about those very basic freedoms, why they're important, and how we can still keep our children safe while honoring those basic freedoms that they need. The first freedom that I want to talk about is the freedom to see and to observe. Children have to be around other people. They need to be in the mix of the work that's happening in the home. They need to go outside and be in nature, go out into the cities and to the towns. Part of this being able to see and being included in cultural celebrations. Children are self-constructing with everything that they see. So the more that they're seeing, the more information that they're able to use to construct themselves. Then we have the freedom to hear language. Children have to hear language to create language. And this just isn't being in a room where there are conversations happening. This is sitting and having a conversation with a very, very young child or even an infant. Because this information is providing what they need to begin to understand spoken language. And through understanding spoken language and their exposure to language, they are able to create that oral language. And once they can speak, the child needs the freedom to talk, to have conversations, ask questions, maybe be a little noisy sometimes. They need to practice this emerging speech. And last is the freedom of movement, to move and to touch the items in their environment. When children are very small, they rely on adults to move them about, but that's not for very long. Then they've got locomotion, whether it's crawling, whether it's walking. This movement is going to expand their opportunities to learn in their environment through experience. Now, the more a child has the freedom to move, the more opportunity they have to gain control over their own body. And this means that it's going to expand the experiences that they're going to be able to have in the world around them. These are very basic freedoms. The freedom to see and observe, to hear speech and to make speech, to move and to touch. Children are learning every moment of every single day. And I think it's easy to see how these very basic freedoms allow a child to take in optimum amount of information so that they can self-construct themselves. These very basic freedoms are so important. Next video, I'm going to talk about natural consequences, choices, and how we can structure our home a little bit to make sure that we are also keeping the child safe.